I don't always think.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.
Gus
All
Curran.
right.
Is that where you work out, John? You get your workout at House of Champions?
I have been there, but I have not got my workout there. I go to my own gym lately. No, yeah. Gus,
Anyways,
yeah, it's a great time. Yeah.
Another episode of the Board Report, right? It's April 25th, 2025, and I'm sitting in for Joanne tonight. John's running the show tonight, and we have Patrice Bowes, not Bowles, but Bowes from Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast. I'll get it sooner or later. She's down there yelling at me. But and then we're gonna have Jennifer Pippin from Moms for Liberty, right, giving us an update on the battle in Tallahassee, I believe, with the parental rights bills coming through. And then for the panel, I believe Thomas Kenny from the Sunshine Journal will join us, probably with some questions for Jen and maybe with some news of his own. We'll see what he's got.
I think he's got some breaking news coming out from the Sunshine Journal, so that'll be a good little segment at the end too. So stick around for that too. So it's going to be interesting to see where that breaking news is going to. But we got a lot going on here at the Board Report. Lots of stuff to report on. And again, we love to thank Gus Curran's House of Champions for sponsoring the show and keeping us able to do this and each and every week at 7:00 live, bringing everybody information about what's going on in the area and new things coming up. And like you said, Voices for Children, who also sponsors our Connecting People and Places podcast, they're going to be Teresa's going to be on to give us an update. So I'm looking forward to it.
We went and spent some time with them last week for actually during where our show would be airing. At the Home Run for Heroes or Heroes I'll screw that up too. That was pretty cool.
Heroes. And yeah, that was a great time. We had
it reminded me as a kid going to Shea Stadium. So it's kind of like I was actually looking at tickets today. I was like, here we go. I don't have time for anything, but
it was a good time.
It was fun meeting them and hanging out, and there's some things in the works. So
yep.
Yeah. Anything else before I throw it to House of Champions?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Well, we'll be right back with Patrice.
Tired of the same old workout? Come knock out your fitness goals at Gus Curran's House of Champions. Founded in 1996 right here in Vero Beach, Florida, our Hall of Fame trainers will push you to your limits and beyond. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, we have the perfect class for you, including the one-of-a-kind rock-steady Parkinson's training. So come join the fight and unleash the champion inside you. Give them a call, 772-713-1157, or go to gchouseofchampions.com.
Hey, John, I'm going to bring Jen up.
All right. Appreciate it.
That was a great little update from Patrice. Hi, Jen.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. Real quick, and we just played that Warrior Shield Foundation commercial. We will be there on Warrior Shield weekend, September 5th and 6th. At least a handful of us to do a podcast, either beside or with Dale and Jim from Two Guys in One Coop, who have built like an amazing relationship with that foundation and turned us onto it. So we're proud to support them and play their promotion. So I'll be there definitely for that concert, which has got like Bo Bice,
so awesome.
Ryan Weaver, Natasha Owens. There's a couple other ones. I'll screw up their names. So anyways, to the important stuff. What's going on, Jen? I thought we figured this out a year ago when it came to parental rights. So
Right,
what's
right.
going on now in a Republican-controlled Florida state Congress?
Yeah, so a lot of bills still going through. We're in the middle of session. So I know last time we spoke, we were talking about bills that were coming through. So the flag bill died. So the one that said, no other flags other than the United States flag in schools, government buildings, that died. It didn't make it through committee. So unfortunately, those flags are still allowed in our schools and government entities. So I'm talking trans flags, LGBTQ flags, Antifa flags, BLM flags, anything like that still unfortunately allowed government entities in schools. That was a big one, that we were trying to advocate for with Moms for Liberty and so many parental rights organizations across the state. So this is the second time it's failed. So again, just not enough backbone to be able to pull the trigger and say, listen, this is not appropriate, for children or, county commissions or anything like that. Let's just have the United States.
What is the argument against it?
So they say, well, it represents other people. And, what if we want to have the Florida flag, or what if we have somebody visiting and they want to have a flag? So it just gets into the weeds, and that's not what this bill was, designed for. But again, that allows all of the other, indoctrination and other things to be able to come about. So unfortunately, it didn't pass again.
Will we see that one reworded and back for another go next session, or how does that work?
Yeah, it could be. They absolutely could rework it and, have some other sponsors or co-sponsors that may be able to push it through. But with the second time failing, sometimes third time's a charm, just like the original parental rights law. It took many, many years and much conversation and compromise and, having these hard conversations, during COVID and things like that. And, Aaron Grawl, who made it happen with Patty Sullivan, just having those hard conversations and actually, having situations come to light to make this bill pass in 2021 when it was.
So you mentioned two important names there. I've seen I know of Aaron Grawl, I voted for her, but Patty Sullivan, I see her on social media and I see she's a big advocate for parental rights. Can you tell our audience who Patty Sullivan is?
Sure. One of my favorite people. So Patty Sullivan was actually the first person that approached Aaron Grawl with just one line that said parental rights are fundamental rights. And Aaron Grawl took that and made it into an amazing law. And again, went through 3 sessions with Patty and so many other, parentalrights.org members and passed this. So Patty is literally the pioneer of parental rights and making the parental rights law here in Florida. So she's advocating actually currently in Tallahassee. She flies back today. She's been at almost all the meetings and sessions with Aaron Grawl to, strengthen these parental rights laws of the violations that we've seen, or like the little loopholes we've seen over the past couple of years. So like the parental rights law that's going through now is House Bill 1505 and Senate Bill 1226. So people who don't know, there's a House side, there's a Senate side, has to pass on the House, has to pass on the Senate, and then the governor can sign it or veto it. So that's how a law is made. It is currently going through the process. But the big thing that's making changes with this law from what we have now. So you guys may not even know, with having children, if a 13 to 17-year-old goes to have a counseling session right now in current law, they do not have to have parental consent or knowledge for the first 2 visits. That's currently in law. So what this law is going to do is take that out and say, listen, it needs to be with parental consent. It needs to be with parental knowledge. Not a lot of people know that. It's a loophole that's been getting through in the mental health aspect. This law will also have to have an opt-in for surveys. So instead of having an opt-out and that paperwork never comes home, it's an opt-in. So you, Mike, and John, and myself would have to sign and say, yes, our student can take the Department of Health survey or something like that.
So just like we saw with the books, where I had to go in there and opt out of all these stupid titles, it's more or less now I'll have to go in there and say, okay, make these things available, but not the books.
Right. Exactly. It'll be mainly surveys. So a couple years back, we had surveys asking children as young as 10 years old, have they had anal sex? Have they been drinking and doing drugs before having sex? And all of this. And this was out parental consent or knowledge. It was just random children picked from ages 10 to 17. And it was put through the Department of Health during COVID. And one of our students in Indian River came home and asking their mom all these weird questions. And that's how we found the surveys in there. So since then, when we challenged that, they no longer do that specific survey, but surveys like that without all the inflammatory language are still coming to our schools.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So before we get too far from Patty Sullivan, what's her organization again?
parentalrights.org. So there's
Okay.
Parental Rights Florida. It's on the national, but she is the chairman for the state of Florida, the president for Florida. And they do a lot with legislation. They do a lot with training, huge organization. And of course, partners with Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, Citizens Defending Freedom, all of these parental rights and, freedom. I mean, the medical community has come out big time with this parental rights law, knowing that these counselors can get these young teenagers without parental consent and counsel them, and the parents may not ever know. So we have a lot of healthcare professionals and the medical field really stepping up and saying, listen, this is an issue. And now with all of the mental health issues and things that are now that we're long-term COVID side effects, these children need to be with a parent, or the parent at least needs to know who they're seeing and who they're talking to and have that consent.
For sure. And, I'm reminded of what Sheila Matthews works towards, the informed consent. And it's like, so, therapy, I believe, is the same. Sure. If it's prescribed like a medication, or if they can even prescribe a medication, I think the parents should have informed consent as to what their minor child is doing. If I'm going to be responsible for the child, you're going to hold me responsible anyways. Why am I not responsible then? Why take that? So I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that the only bill they're working on?
So that's the biggest parental rights one now that they're making the change from the original bill in 2021. There's also some verbiage with, DCF being able to do investigations and things like that, and kind of tightening up that language. Because right now, anybody could be watching this podcast right now and call DCF on all of us and say that we're abusing children, right? And DCF would have to come out and do their investigation and, take a look into that. So some of the verbiage that DCF could remove children from the home, that's being tightened up a little bit in this law as well, which is huge.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, DCF is like a controversial department to begin with. I'm sure there's a good side, but there's a lot of controversy as to its dark side. And, you definitely don't want them involved unless they need to be. Right. I'm sure there's a benefit for some people, but scary, just like you said, it's so easy for somebody to screw with your life like that. And we've seen it with PPN, not DCF, but the swatting. A few of our personalities were swatted over the last week. And, that's life ruining stuff. You might come out of it unharmed, but the traumatic, just going through the paperwork, whether it's DCF or being woken up at 12 midnight by the sheriff's department kicking your door in, those things are meant to take you down, either emotionally, morally, or, in the swatting case, that's attempted murder. And they go after people for that. And I think they should do the same when it comes to false, maybe some complaints are made with good intention, but, there's incidences, custody battles, just whether it's from parents to adult children or separated adults, and false accusations made like that could ruin somebody.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and there's court mandated reporters. So, you got your teachers, your counselors, things like that. If they see abuse, they're seeing bruises, bloody lips, broken noses, they are court mandated reporters and they have to report that. Right. So there is those instances where, parents or guardians are not taking care of their children or not having the best interest for it. But for the most part, especially here in Indian River County, parents have the fundamental rights over their children. And just because you don't agree with a podcast, or you don't agree with their religion, or you don't agree with the organization that they're involved with, doesn't mean that you have the right to call DCF on them and report abuse, right? So again, one of those just little loopholes to, put a couple more stipulations in place to make sure that, children aren't being removed from homes that, don't have the circumstances to do so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Due process.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Which we hear a lot in the news right now.
Yeah, right. We had a comment from one of our contributors, George Cologne. He was saying Governor DeSantis passed an update through legislation on mental health recovery services and holding others accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a positive, because like you said earlier, Jennifer, about the mental health, that was one thing that my biggest concern, as being involved in the board at school board and things of that nature, was the mental health of the children. We were going to have to do a cleanup. I remember telling you that, like, this is just the beginning. The cleanup's going to have to come around. We're going to have a mental health crisis on our hands now because of what's happened for these last 3.5, 4 years of just stress and COVID. I call it COVID stress disorder. And then you have the psychological trauma from the children, have to take that into the future, because everything that happened during those years, you imagine, if you have, like, you guys have younger children than mine, my son was older, but at the same time, if you had a 4-year-old that started in COVID and had to deal with masks for 2 years, by the time that child's 6, 7 years old, that's a major, major development scenario for a child to be able to have to go through that stress during that time. And that's what we're seeing, the impacts of it.
That's right. Well, and we told them time and time again, listen, social distancing these children, masking these children, and, the CDC quietly pushing back the delays, and, where children are crawling and speaking and, doing all these things. They pushed it back during COVID, and so many people were worried about, the next vaccination, and, when these schools were going to be opened back up. They were just moving the thresholds back. And, we told them every meeting. I mean, I remember John would stand up there and say, listen, we're harming children. Dr. Mark McCain, before he passed, got up there and said, listen, I'm more worried about the COVID protocols than children dying in my practice. I've written more prescriptions for mental health cases during COVID than I've treated children with COVID. He stopped doing COVID tests because they were getting falsified through the Department of Health. I mean, all of this is available during public record. He said it publicly, and it just fell on deaf ears. So, for 5 years now, John, we said, listen, this is an issue. And, now we see the steady decline of what's going on in our school system with enrollment. And we can only say, we told you so. It was COVID, it was the LGBTQ administration guide, it was the books in the school. So all of these culture wars, or, issues that, the fake media says, these are reasons why parents are pulling their children out of public schools.
No, 100%, and we saw it coming, So I mean, now it's we not even told you so. It's now we have to clean it up. So how are you going to help us clean it up? We need help. We need legislation passed. We need, like George said, to start focusing on mental health. Go ahead, Mike.
Right.
So, I mean, I was going to shift towards our neighbors to the north. I see in the news quite a bit in Central Florida, a lot of noise being made in Brevard County. A lot of it due to the teacher, Calhoun, who went against state law and parental preference and broke the law. Can you tell us a little bit more? I think we talked about her last week, but can you tell us what's going on in Brevard County and what's this whole situation with this teacher?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that could be a 5-hour segment all in itself, but the Cliff Notes version is, yes, Moms for Liberty advocated, along with many other parental rights organizations, again, Parental Rights Florida, Moms for America, to have a law that stipulates that you can only call a child or teacher by their biological sex, by their biological name, unless the parent or guardian signs a permission slip. And no, it's not because you're calling Jonathan John or because you're calling Michael Mike. It is for, the transgender ideology and dysphoria that's getting pushed on our minor children. So the Brevard teacher had a 17-year-old student who is a female, and she was calling this female male pronouns and a male name. without parental consent. So the parent never signed a permission slip, did not know that this was going on. And it went through due process. We talk about due process. So there was an investigation through the school, and the teacher knowingly admitted that she broke the law. She knew. It wasn't she didn't know. She was given a warning. She knew. So she knowingly broke the law. And it kind of escalated because the news got hold of it. Some liberals got a hold of it and said they're not looking out for the transgender children. These children are going to commit suicide, so on and so forth. So it mushroomed into this big thing. And the teacher is still working today, gentlemen. She's still working today. She was non-renewed. So it's not like she was fired. She was non-renewed. She cannot continue working for Brevard County Schools starting after May. So she can't work summer school and after that. The parent to this point did not press charges. So literally all this teacher has to do is go somewhere else and gain employment. Wow. And not break the law again. And that's what this law was intended for. And she did exactly what happened with the January Littlejohn case in the Panhandle and so many other cases across the country where that teacher knowingly broke the law and took the parents' rights to be able to raise their daughter to, their beliefs and their values and call her by her biological sex.
Wow. Yeah. Now, that's not the only crazy crap going on in Brevard County. We saw the other, I'm confused with the whole house party thing. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about that?
Yes. So there was a teacher and a principal who hosted a house party, and they were giving students, underage students, obviously under 21, and nobody can have drugs. It was marijuana and alcohol to minor children that went to their schools. And I believe that there was an arrest made, or they were looking into it, but they didn't terminate the teacher and the principal at that time. I think since then they have. But it was a big controversy because when this whole thing happened with this teacher, everybody was saying, well, how come the other people weren't fired? When in fact, this teacher is, again, still working. She's still in the classroom. She's still in the classroom today. So again, they were just trying to kind of mush it all together. And, our stance on it with Moms for Liberty is, listen, if you break the law and you're providing, minor children with drugs and alcohol under 21, that's illegal. You are breaking the law, and law enforcement needs to handle that. But again, they were kind of, putting all three of the incidents together with the principal and the two teachers, and trying to, put them together. So to my knowledge, this is still under investigation, and the school board is going to decide what's going to happen. But they're waiting for all the facts, and they got the body cam footage, I believe, last week from the arrest. So they're going to take that into consideration, and I'm sure that'll be on their next agenda.
How do you think our superintendent, Dr. Moore, and our board would handle this? I know it's hard to say, but knowing our, trend, how would we handle this?
Yeah. So great question. I honestly think that if parents, grandparents, and community members showed up and said, listen, we need to follow the law. Teachers aren't above the law. Principals aren't above the law. Administration's not above the law, and not, sugarcoat what happened or the age of the student or anything like that. I would hope that they would follow the law and terminate the teacher. And I would hope that the parent, if it did happen in our community, I would absolutely help them take legal action on the teacher that violated their parental rights.
Right. We're not coming up against any critical elections in the next 2 years, are we?
So with school board, we're going to have 3 seats open in 2026. So District 2, which is currently held by Jacqueline Rosario, District 4, which is currently held by Terry Berenborg, and District 1, which is currently held by Jean Posca. And then, of course, higher up, looking at governor and things like that, that'll all be in 2026. County commission, city councils, things like that.
Of course, I think the most critical are the school board, especially Jackie and Dr. Posca's spots. How do you feel about, I know it's early, but how do you feel going in, looking ahead at those elections? How do you feel will turn out?
Sure. So we're going to work just as hard as we have in the past elections. We're going to bring everybody together and advocate for parental rights and the issues at hand, and make sure the best people are in our seat and they're elected by, the parents, grandparents, and community members who, want a better future for our future leaders and our children that we have currently in the district. And, with a declining school system, I'm hoping that more people will get involved, or people who have pulled their children from, public school and they're going to private school or homeschool now. Hopefully they'll vote with their feet and, want the best for, all the other children who are still in public schools, or want better, public schools. Your kids and my kids go to public schools, have the best education, and, just keep going in a positive direction with, these classical schools and the K-8s, and, really listening to parents and grandparents and community members to make education better. Because we know you can always make something better, whether it's education or a relationship or work. So we just need to continue to do that, even when things kind of status quo right now, in our, quiet little county. But, it could be, that the next culture war could happen, next week or next month. And we just need to stay on top of it and just make sure everybody knows the issues.
Keep your head on a swivel, be awake and aware, and just, pay attention to what's going on, because at any moment things could shift and you could be like, oh, here we go, selective outrage, and here we go again. What's this new topic that's coming up? I wanted to go back to, you mentioned Jackie Rosario, and what is the story going on with that call to action that I saw today?
Sure. So on the board agenda, it's 9E on Monday. They are voting for a new work group representative for the desegregation order with the NAACP versus the School District of Indian River County, which is costing us taxpayers $105,000 to $150,000 a year, 60 years running. Jackie Rosario was supposed to serve on this committee until November of 2025. And the first thing that David Dyer did when he got elected was he wanted her resolution removed, which only has her in this committee position until this month. And they're going to vote as a board to either appoint her, hopefully, and let her continue her work, because she's only been in that role for a year, or, get somebody else on there to, be the board representative against the NAACP.
Okay. So what do we need to do as far as, people coming out, speaking up about this, to voice their opinion on whether they think that's the right thing to do or not? Is that what we need to do?
Absolutely. Yes. So we have a call to action out, just asking to reinstate Jackie Rosario. The previous board member that was on there was on for 3 years. They were supposed to meet every month. With Jackie's term, they've only met 5 times against the judge's orders. So she wants to be able to continue that work and be allotted more time to, go further with the desegregation order. And she's just been really doing well. She's been working well with the lawyers. She's been bringing in district staff to meet with the NAACP and answer their questions. Dr. Shafty is brilliant. She's the one that's bringing all the data to the work group, and everybody has just been working so well. They're about to reach unitary status on transportation, because we know all students are allotted transportation. It's not based on race, right? All students get to ride the bus to school, or, to sports or activities and things like that. It's not, segregated. So we're about to, reach unitary status on that with all of, again, the data that the districts, showed, and it's been absolutely amazing. So we would like to have her stay on there and continue the good work she's doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Are they just looking at the student data, or are they looking at the bus drivers, the mechanics, along with the teachers and the maintenance guys?
Right.
The segregation order is across the board, district-wide, student and employee, right?
Correct. That is correct. So they kind of got into the weeds at the meeting last night. There was only 2 of us watching, and both of us were kind of texting back and forth and kind of putting our 2 cents in. So they even got into the weeds of, what if an African-American parent didn't have a car that could drive them to the bus stop or drive them to school if the school was less than 2 miles away? Well, that happens with all families, whether you're biracial, Caucasian, Indian, African American. If you don't have a car and you're less than 2 miles away, you have to get your child to school, right? They were talking about, having to drive further, and they were literally getting into the weeds. So if you want to see some, and they gave a laundry list of these requests towards the end of the meeting that had nothing to do with the desegregation order and the 2018 plan, joint plan that they agreed on. It had nothing to do with segregation or race. It literally, they were talking about bus stops and how long children had to wait at certain bus stops, how long they had to wait on the bus for. And again, gentlemen, we're looking at this with a wide lens. They're not going to keep Black children on the bus for longer than they're going to keep white children, that they're going to keep biracial children. Everybody's on the bus for the same amount of time or less if their stops are closer, or they're waiting at the bus stop for the same amount of time. So again, they were just getting into the weeds and worried about the African American children who may have had to wait at the bus stops. Or
so tell me this though,
you know,
so what is it they're looking for? Is it they're looking for exceptions for this one group of people only, or are they just trying to keep their organization relevant and this court order in continuance so they can keep milking it out for the what, 150,000 a year this is costing our district?
Right.
So
yeah.
is it something they want? What do they want out of this?
Their only concern is the African American students. That they've said it time and time again. It's in the name of their organization, Mike. Okay, they're looking for the advancement of colored people. It's literally in the name. So again, everything that they're asking and bringing up in this desegregation order is based on race. And again, everybody's afforded transportation. They don't say, "Oh, well, you're Black, you can't get on. You're white, you can't get on," or "You're Black, we're gonna make a loop around and come back and pick you up and then take you to school," or "We're gonna keep you longer on the bus because you're Black or because you're white or because you're biracial." I mean, this transportation has been going on since the dawn of time. And with our school district, Dr. Moore was so brilliant and said, listen, we don't have to provide transportation to, a football game or after school activities. This is all in addition to, right. So for that parent that maybe doesn't have transportation, right? Because of course, some people don't have transportation or their transportation is down. They could still go to that football game at another school or a volleyball game or stay after school and have transportation. So not only has the district gone above and beyond, but it's for all students, not just the white students.
I was shocked that if I want my son to go to a school on the other side of the county, if the bus doesn't come here within a certain amount of mileage, they'll pick them up at a Go Line bus stop. If that's the route we decide. They've gone, like you said, above and beyond the extra mile to make sure these kids can get to school, other than going to the house and taking them, making them brush their teeth and get in the car, But how much more can you do, or how many more exceptions can you make? During any of these meetings, this might be a touchy subject, but does the disciplinary process or policy ever come into question? Because as far as I know, that's the only thing that's not desegregated is the way we punish our kids or decide who gets discipline and who doesn't.
You're exactly correct. So let's say two students fight on a bus. Perfect example. Two students fight on a bus, a white student and a Black student. They get into a fight. It's on the cameras. The bus driver reports it. The Black student gets punished at the district level, and the white student would get punished at the school that the bus driver was dropping them off at, because of the desegregation order. That Black student may or may not get in trouble, or may not get suspended or have detention. So perfect example. I'm glad you bring that up. But no, you never hear the lawyers talk about that or the work group talk about that. They just get into the weeds of, they were even talking about, well, what if a Black student in Fellsmere wanted to go to Vero Beach High School in their zone for Sebastian? Would they have transportation? And Dr. Moore literally said, yes, all students will have transportation if they're able to go to their school choice and have transportation to that school. But if it's less than 2 miles, the parent would have to either walk with their student or bike with their student or walk with their student, and would not be provided transportation under 2 miles.
Wow. Yeah. So I usually ask you in the panel, what's your grade for our district this week, for our superintendent and for our district?
Yeah. After seeing the hoopla in Brevard and some other things going on with the legislation in Tallahassee, I'd still say a B. I don't think it's perfect yet. After hearing
we
this,
had a headline coming.
Yeah.
I thought we had a headline on the Sunshine Journal. Jennifer Pippin
we
gives
do.
Dr. Moore an A.
Yes.
Close,
Hey, that's
maybe a B
okay.
plus.
I think Dr. Moore's doing great with the desegregation order, to be honest with you. He's trying to close out, they have different bullet points that they need done. So like transportation, renewing teachers, things like that. So they're going to mediation for the teacher renewal and retention. And they're about to close out this transportation. So Dr. Moore's been putting his foot down with this. So I give him an A for the desegregation order.
He needs to save some money, so that's what makes sense. Like he's got to make up for the loss of students or anything else. He's like, well, I can save some money here if I can put this to bed. So it makes kind of sense if you look at it. Let me ask you this real quick before we go break. We got the breaking news in the green room, but what do you think now with this meeting coming up next with the Jackie Rosario scenario? Are you going to see some selective outrage come showing up to this scenario? If you could predict the future, what do you predict for the next school board meeting? Is this going to be a big subject that people are going to want to talk about?
I don't think so, honestly, because I feel like two of the school board members on the opposing side have their views, and whatever anybody says or emails, they could get 500 emails and have 100 people show up. They're going to dig their feet in. And then I think that there's two that want, Jackie to continue the work. And I think that we have one that may be on the fence. And so we'll see. I mean, hopefully they listen to their constituents and they see the emails coming in and the reasons why they want Jackie to stay. They hear the voices at public comment and listen to their constituents and not, the ones that, voted for them and, their voting demographics before, their election.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. Can't hear you.
Any events coming up for Moms for Liberty?
We have our normal meeting, the third Thursday of every month coming up. We do have a family fun night coming up. We're going to partner with a couple other organizations to get that done in July. So, during the summer. And other than that, since we're coming into testing and graduation, it's pretty quiet with Moms for Liberty. We're just finishing out this legislative session, and hopefully, knock on wood, it stays pretty quiet for the next couple of months and just get, these policies and procedures and rocking and rolling at the end of the school year, getting into the next school year.
Awesome. John, do you want to take it to our newest intern, and then we'll come back to a panel with Thomas Kenny?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I want to get that message out.
We wanted to introduce our audience to Lenka. It's kind of more like a joke, but we'll be right back with Thomas Kenny and Jennifer Pippin.
I'm Lenka, the newest addition to Indian River Connections. I'm here to help the partners explain what we can offer to your business or organization. Indian River Connections offers ad space on our direct mail campaigns that reach approximately 10,000 households each mailing, and with multiple campaigns available to target specific communities. We also offer ad space and sponsorships to 5 different podcasts at the moment. From local shows like The Board Report and the Connecting People and Places podcast, to national audiences from Binford Chronicles, TGI Now podcast, and syndicated to The Point podcast. That's not all we do, though. We offer unique ways to promote your business or product. So stay tuned for some great partnerships and productions coming from the team at Indian River Connections, and hopefully we can partner with you too. Is it off? I think it's off. I nailed it. I was so dang nervous. Hopefully Mike likes it. He can be a prick about these things.